Welcome to Lifting the Lid. In this DVD we'll be focusing on gravel pit and gravel pit fishing. I'm Mark Bryant and this is Cash Farnham, and we are here at the stunning Hardwick Smiths Lake on the Linear Complex in Oxfordshire. During this DVD we want to show you not only what's above the surface, but more importantly what's on the bottom. We've got a stunning lake here with the topography going up and down like an egg box. Gravel pit fishing for me is probably the most exciting forms of fishing you can do. So many different features, and with this lake we know we've got some stunning fish as well.
The Hardwick fish, they're renowned throughout all of the Oxfordshire and across the country. Predominantly you're looking at the big ones that top the scale. You've got the big-tailed common, that's a low 30. You've got the dinosaur, that's a mid 30, real prehistoric monster, that one. And of course, top of the tree in Hardwick is Jordan. That has topped 40 pounds in the past, but is looking on an average day 37, 38 pound plus. Real stunning carp.
Wow, some of them fish absolutely stunning. We've got a 3-day session ahead of us now, and we've got the benefit of having Stu Morgan, who's a diver. Now, Stu's going to be going out periodically into the lake and looking at the underwater terrain and also the methods we adopt for gravel pit fishing. As you appreciate, this is going to limit the amount of bites we get, but I think it's well worth it to get this footage. Throughout the DVD you're going to see Chris Blunt popping up from time to time. He's going to take us around some of the more popular swims on Hardwick, and I for one cannot wait to see some of the footage we're going to see at the underwater spots that he points out, because these areas get fished week in, week out, and fish come on them. So we want to look at how and why fish come off these areas time and time again. Well, I'm excited to get fishing. I know Cash can't wait, so let's go over to our first swims.
Well, we've decided to start on the spit that comes off of the conveyor belt bank. I lost a toss, so I've got second choice of swim, but I think it's a good choice. I'm in the mouth of the bay. Now, there's been a southwesterly wind blowing down here for the last couple of days, so I'm hopeful that the fish are here or hereabouts. Now, I've got the rods out, I've found a lovely spot at the end of a bar, and I've also found a lovely silt bowl. In the meantime, Mark's setting up elsewhere, so let's go and have a look and see what Mark's found.
We're in a swim called the Hot Spot. I actually like to say that I won this in the toss, so I was actually over the moon to get this peg. I've got Smiths behind me, I've got Hardwick out in front, and this actual swim covers a load of water. We've got a lot of options here. So I settled on fishing straight out in front of me, because it's worth mentioning there's a couple of guys up on the point to my right, and they're casting down, not into my water, but very close, so I didn't want to mess up their fishing, so I concentrated what's straight out in front of me. And if we look out to the swim, we've got on the far bank, there's a couple of good reference points. We've got a big telegraph pole out there, and then to the left you see a willow tree as well. So on those 2 points we've got 2 bars that actually run out from my bank, and they're basically going out in a very gradual V, going out to 70, 80 yards I found the bars at, but I'm fishing at probably 50 yards just for ease, and obviously to send Stu in the diver. In between those bars we've got a nice gully which is 14 foot, and on top of the bars is 10 foot. So a great fishing area coupled with very, very deep water either side. The drop off is like that, it's absolutely sheer. Goes straight down to 25, 26 foot, and interestingly when we set Stu out yesterday, the thermocline, so the difference in temperature where it dramatically drops, we found at 18 foot. Anything below 18 foot was freezing cold. I did chuck a lead to the right of the spots off the bar into this silt, and it went down, and I must say I did feel a good drop right at the bottom of the bar, and I would have thought, to be fair, if I was someone fished there I would have fished it, but Stu confirmed when he went down to the bottom, a couple of feet of silt, so, and it absolutely really murky. As soon as he touched it, it puffs up like a big cloud. So I don't doubt fish do feed down there, but it's questionable what times of the year there's actually available food down there for them. One thing Stu did bring back from the bar was copious amounts of zebras and snails, and I've got a few here. Look at that, instant food. Available 24/7, all through the year as well. The zebras, they will stay there summer and winter, and they're easy pickings for the fish, same as the snails as well. It's not like bloodworm that are harvested, at different points in the year. This natural food is available all year round, so there's no reason why these fish aren't visiting it every morning to mop up these free morsels. So it's a great place to put any sort of bait. Great pond snails here, and here we have the zebras. One point worth mentioning about the zebras is they cover absolutely anything, any structure out there, slopes, stones, weed, they're there. And these are shut now, but when they're in the water they open up and there's a tiny little slit, literally, I don't know, 3 or 4 mil, something like that, and it's absolutely razor sharp, so they will go through your main line. I know a couple of anglers behind us fishing into the Smith side have had problems already with cut-offs and that. And when you see these open on the bottom, you know, the line's only got to go over these or touch these and ping, the fish is gone. So certainly a leader or thicker sort of mainline material I'd definitely recommend for fishing over any of these steep-sided slopes. So that's the natural food. What I'm going to do, I'm going to position 2 rods. I'm going to have one on top of the bar on the telegraph pole, and the other rod I'm going to have down the slope towards the gully, literally 5-10 yards away. I'm going to lightly bait with 12mm barrels. I like the irregular shapes of barrels on venues like this because the fish are so used to little round balls, so I'm going to give them something slightly different. In that mix as well, I'm just going to put a couple of handfuls of hemp. I don't want to put too much hemp in there. I want them still picking around, picking baits up. The rigs I'm going to use, very simple, 2 little fluorocarbon hook links, probably about 7 or 8 inches long, with little balanced baits. So as the bait goes down, it just throws the hook link away. So very, very simple methods. I have noticed slightly down the bank here, as I was walking up with my tackle, I had a peek over in the Smith side, and the depth goes straight down, literally 18 foot. And we did see a couple of fish come right through the margins in close. And there's a little spot down there, which is polished gravel, and I think it gets missed. It's literally just through the trees. Like, you have to poke a little hole. There is enough just for one rod. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to nip down there and put some bait on it, keep an eye on it, and I think I'm going to tie a little rig up. So I've got a little sneaky rod. I'm not going to tell Cash, but I'm going to pop a rod in there and see what happens. So let's do that.
Right, that's the swim sorted. Mark mentioned earlier that we're here with our diver Stu. Now I'm sat with him right now. Stu, over the last number of years you've dived a hell of a lot in gravel pits, ponds and rivers. What do you expect to find?
I don't know until I get out there, is the honest answer, because most of these gravel pits are very different to each other in their makeup and their clarity. What I'm hoping to find, and we know Hardwick is famous for its deep features and its big areas of silt, etc., so they'll all be really interesting to look at. So that's what I'm hoping to show you on camera. Also, it'll be very interesting to show you maybe how some of your methods and rigs, etc., are lying over or in those features. I've got a slight benefit this time that I'm trying out a new piece of kit with me. I mean, one of the fundamental problems with making underwater DVDs with a diver is you keep having to come out and up and down to the surface to report what's happening or to instruct you to where you're casting, etc. With this bit of kit, it's like a ship-to-shore radio. I've got a live link with you all the time, and I can actually record my voice of what I'm seeing as it happens. That should be really good.
Fantastic. So that means then you can go and find Jordan for us, then tell us where she is.
If I find Jordan, what I'd probably do is wait until we finish fishing and I'd come back in 2 days' time and fish for myself.
Yeah, good angling. No, can't argue with that one. Right, that's fantastic. Now, one of the features that you tend to find in all gravel pits are plateaus.
Yeah.
Now, allegedly, there's one just off the road bank.
Yep.
So let's go and see if we can try and find it with your help.
Okay, let's go and take a look.
Great.
There it is there. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. There it is.
Right, mate, what do you think you found?
Well, if you go beyond that float there, we're looking at 14 foot of water, and from what I can make out, it's quite smooth.
Right.
A firmish bottom, probably some sediment down there, but as you bring it back to that spot there, you're coming up a slope.
Okay.
Now, it's quite hard to feel what that slope actually is. I'm guessing it's probably a bar of sorts because I get the odd pluck, but there's a lot of dying weed out there, black sort of dying weed, so it's sort of muffling the lead as it's coming up.
Yeah.
But that's the only raised area that I found out at sort of that distance where Chris, the bailiff, and Roy suggested where we plumb.
Okay. Well.
So it looks a good spot. There's deep water behind it. It's the first bit of shallow water coming up. And I'll be well interested in sending Stuart to see what he thinks.
Well, let's do it. Let's go and have a look at that marker and the bottom that it's sat on.
Yep, let's do it.
And there it is. There is the plateau on the first swell on the road bank. It's bigger than I expected, maybe 20, 30 feet from left to right. Mostly clay with a light silt covering, and as you can see there's the odd bit of gravel here as well. Clear area in the middle, and it drops off at the left and the right. Okay, Mark, the depth is about 12.5 feet deep here according to my computer. Drops off to left into the weed. The bottom makeup here is largely gravel with a fine layer of powdery silt on the top.
Blimey, Stu, that must have been cold.
Yeah, it's pretty nippy in there.
So, mate, what did you find? Well, Cash, that was a relief. I was expecting Stu to go out there and find something that I'd missed blatantly with the marker. So, to see on the video footage there the spots that I actually found, it's actually reconfirmed that the marker rod is doing a good job. To be fair, looking at the area we found, massive plateau. Obviously the fish have been feeding there. It's actually huge and golden, and exactly how Chris described it.
Yeah, and when Stu's gone out and filmed it, you know, he's come back and he's sort of said it's like 20 foot across.
Yeah.
Wow, that's massive. But the one thing that we obviously can't see on a day-to-day basis, but when we do see this underwater on this footage, you don't want to be putting a bait right in the centre of that, because that's probably going to be the hardest place to actually get a bite from. You know, the fish are going to be a little bit wary, a little bit tricky of it. But Stu sort of pointed out when he was under the water that sort of dusty silt that was just off of the plateau.
On the edge of it and all that.
Yeah, that's where you need to put that hook bait.
Definitely. Well, to hit those sort of areas, you've got to be mega tight with your baiting and your casting as well.
Yeah, you have.
You have to clip up, don't you?
Several methods of doing that on clipping up just to ensure that you are that accurate.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's go and look at that right now.
Okay, there we go, the marker floats up. What we want to do is try and put a rig next to that float on top of the bar. Now, the two most popular methods of doing this is to cast a lead out as close to the marker as you possibly can, feel it down, then clip it up, reel it in, and hopefully that'll hit the spot. Secondly, we can wind the marker down to the lead, clip that line into the spool, reel that in, and then pace it out on the bank, put a bank stick at a reference point on the bank, and then walk our rig out to that reference point, cast it back out. So what we're going to do now, we're going to do both of those methods and find out which one's the most accurate. Going to use method A, which is clipped up on the marker float. So let's cast this out now, and then we're going to have a look, see what it looks like and where it is on the bottom.
Okay, cast, give me about 30 seconds before you cast. I've got both cameras down here, one right underneath the tripod, waiting to see where the lead lands. Okay, yeah, I can see the lead. Okay, cast, that's landed about 6 feet short. I'll just measure it. Yes, mate, that's about 6 feet short.
Now I'm going to use method 2, where I've clipped up at the same distance as the marker float.
Yeah, I see that one, Cash. That's a lot closer. Okay, Cash, that's closer, but it's probably still 3.5 feet short.
So, Stu's out there underwater, he's seen my first cast, the lead landed next to the marker on the surface, but actually on the bottom it was 6 foot short of the spot. So we wound the marker in, we walked it along the bank, put a bank stick in the bank, and I've walked my lead out the same distance, repositioned the marker, then I've cast my lead onto the clip again, and it's still landing short, about 3 foot short this time. So looking at it mathematically, we should probably go for another 7 foot past the marker, which I've now done, I've clipped up. So now's the moment of truth. I'm going to cast this back out and let's see if it lands anywhere near the mark.
I'm going to move it a bit closer on this one because it should land quite close to the marker. Jesus! Don't wind in, Cash, that's hit the camera. It missed my head by about an inch. So it's on the money, but you're going to have to recast and do it again. Sorry, mate. 18 inches, maybe a foot from the marker.
Brilliant. We've just heard from Stu. Let's watch the lead come down, and it's right on the money. So in 14 foot of water, I've cast 7 foot behind the marker flow, and the lead has landed smack on the button. So as a theory, that's what I'm going to look at doing from now on. It might not be the be-all and end-all, but it's a very good starting point.
That was dead interesting, Cass, particularly that last method of walking both your hook bait and your marker bait to a spot down the bank and marking it, and clipping and putting a stop knot on. I've seen that method up and down the country, but what I have noticed is when they actually cast that bait out to what they think is really tight to the marker, and that goes down with a thud on a tight line, think, yep, that's the one. When they actually put the rod in the rests, and the stop knot will say up by the butt ring, by the time they've left it in there and that line is mended, particularly the arc that's in the water from the drag, when they wind that spool up and wind up the slack, that stop knot is actually back, sometimes through the buzzer and sometimes on the spool.
Back on the spool, yeah.
So it's reinforced what we thought. It's swinging back that extra 3.5 foot, sometimes more depending on depth of water. And when you're trying to fish to these little spots out here where the bars, we've seen them, aren't they? They're severe.
Oh, yeah.
You've got to get in within like a 2 foot on the top, otherwise you're on the slope and in danger of rolling off either side.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, it's critical at times. You get away with it other times, but again, for accurate baiting, accurate placement, etc.
Yeah.
Hopefully now we've busted a theory on this and
you
know, got some way of working out where we should be.
Definitely. Well, the baiting's the next one. That'd be very interesting to see that, how that all falls through the water column.
Yeah.
Can't wait to look at that.
Let's see if we get a dump or see if it's just like
Definitely.
spread out all over the place. So.
Too right. Too right.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah. Just pop this in here. And this is the spot. Look at this. A lovely little bit of polished off gravel. Got a bit of depth the other side. And just down there I can just see where it's been worked right down the bottom of the shelf. So I'm going to pop a rig on that, put a little bit of bait and sit back very quietly and see what happens. This is the rig I'm going to be using. Starting off at the bait end, I've got a cut down pop-up which has been critically balanced with a lead insert that I've popped into the bait just here. It's an odd shape because I like the anti-eject properties that a barrel gives me. It tends to rattle around in the fish's mouth before it's ejected, and that's giving the hook an excellent chance of taking hold. I've got a little flexi ring swivel here. Alternatively, that can be a little hair just to give that bait a degree of flexibility and movement. Moving on to the hook, we've got a nice sharp little wide gate, super strong. We've got a bit of weed down there, so I want something that once it goes in, I can have confidence that if I've got to pull out of a weed bed, I can do that. I've extended the gape of the hook by adding a small bit of shrink tube on as well, and I've got a little liner coming out, and again that just helps that hook flit round and take hold. You notice the hook link, very short braided hook link. I try and tie them as short as I can for this situation. In the middle there we've got a little sinker just to help pin it down. Absolutely paranoid about little loops coming up off the bottom. Moving up we've got a swivel, and as you see here I've got a nice heavy lead, 4-ounce lead. That's basically it's a quick release, so the fish picks the bait up, shakes his head, that lead's going to pop off, and hopefully the fish come up to the surface and about from any of the danger of weed that's down there. Moving up the line, you can notice here I've got a nice healthy blob of plasticine. I've placed great faith in plasticine. I use it everywhere. Just pinch it on at intervals. I've got one at a few inches back, and I'll have another one probably 4 to 5 foot up the line as well. So look at that, nice little short rig. You can see how aggressive it is on my hand. Whichever way you pull it, just dig straight in. And for margin feeding carp, it's an awesome little rig that's caught me loads and loads of carp over the years. Massive confidence in it.
Mate, that's an absolute cracking spot. The margins in lakes all over the country, not just this type of lake, but all lakes, are often neglected, but they scream carp.
You're right, Cash. As soon as I walked up that split, I looked over and saw that little gap in the trees and that little spot that's always being worked. The margins on any lake, be it a large gravel pit, small day ticket water, they always do fish. So it's massively important to have a bait down there, and fingers crossed, that one's set and primed.
So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for you, and I'll put money on you probably will get a bite there.
Hope so.
Well, we're going to have a look at something completely opposite to a margin spot now. Off the Rowbank Point swim, we're going to meet up with Chrissy Blunt. He's told us that there are some extreme features out there.
Right.
So let's go and have a look.
Let's do it. So Chris, this is Rowbank Point, is that right?
Yeah, I say some people call it the trees, but yeah, most people put the Rowbank Point.
Right, well I can see from this actually, it looks like a well-worn swim and a very popular swim. I've noticed when me and Cash have been down in the doing the filming over the summer, always someone in it.
Yeah,
always
very
some fish.
popular swim. Yeah, very popular swim.
What makes it so popular, Chris? What sort
I think
of
you've got a lot of
features
water out in front of you.
Yeah.
You've got a nice big plateau out there at about 80, 90, 100 yards. And you've got a lot of other shorter areas at sort of 50, 60 yards in the summer months that you can fish in the onion weed, that you don't need to be on a feature. Nice, easy casting range. I mean, the plateau is a decent chuck. So
Yeah. So how far are we talking? Sort of out
what, for the plateau?
Yeah. For the plateau.
Yeah, I reckon about 90, 80, 90, maybe a little bit more.
And that's right in between the gap, is it?
Yeah, I normally, when I'm fishing it myself, I normally aim for the big tree.
Yep.
Right in between the 2 points, and go out there about 100 and pull it back. You'll drop into the deep water and you can't miss it then, as it's quite a vertical coming up the back of it.
Big climb, is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
big climb, yeah.
Right.
It's a clay plateau, so you get a nice feature on top of it. The only thing you got to watch in the summer months is the weed. If it doesn't get fished much, the weed will get up on there, and sometimes it can get a little bit sticky on there with the weed.
Right, okay. Well, we've got our markers rigged up. I'll tell you what, we'll have a chuck about and try and find this
Yeah,
feature.
definitely, yeah.
All right.
That ain't going to be far off that.
That's going down, going down, going down. That's dropped a hell of a long way.
It's quite deep there, wasn't it?
It's gone down with a thump as well though, and that's really smooth just from dragging back 6 or 7 inches there. Just get a depth, and we know it's quite a deep area out there behind.
Yeah, behind the bar is quite deep.
It's 2, 4, 6, that's 8, 10, 12, 14, 24, 20, just under 26 foot
That is
there.
deep, isn't it?
That is deep. That goes down, I thought it was, went down a hell of a long way. So what we'll do, we'll pull this marker down, drag back, and then hopefully we should start finding this feature, yep. Okay. I mean, that's a big depth out there. If that comes up to sort of 10 foot, that's got to be a hell of a feature.
Yeah, it's quite steep down the back of
It's
that.
predominant, isn't it? Yeah. Right, there's the tap. We're down against the lead. So bring him back. Still quite silty, but I'm just starting to, there we go, plink, plink, plink. That is now, say we're coming up an incline now. The rod tip's gone round. There's definitely a bit of weed about on there on that incline. But we've been finding it, haven't we? And in that weed, we're finding loads of zebras as well.
That's quite smooth. Yeah, there's still a bit of weed there, isn't there?
I just checked the depth on top. So there's patchy weed there, so it might be a bit hazardous to popping the float up, but it's coming up. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 10 and a bit. So there we've gone from 26 foot straight up to 10.5 foot, say.
Yeah, proper carp feature, that one.
Well, what an interesting spot that is, Chris.
Yeah, it's a good one, that one.
I was noticing I went at the back of it into that very deep water and it felt like quite silty. Would that be fair to say at the
I
back?
think you've got some quite deep bits of silt out there that you probably really wouldn't want to put a bait into.
Right.
But then as you start dragging up, you'll feel the clay. A lot of these pits, the way they were dug, you end up with big clay humps dotted around the lake, but that is obviously one of the better spots.
I was going to ask you about that because when I pulled the marker up the side, it's quite steep, I couldn't find any plinks of gravel on it, but it was definitely something firm. It was covered in weed as well.
Yeah, on the features like that, you tend to find the tops of them are quite gravelly. You get a few stones on it,
Yeah.
but then you find where you find the gravel patches, they tend not to actually be a feature as such. You just run across a seam of gravel,
Yes.
and that's just a seam that was left when they were digging it.
Right, and I say, as we've seen from the underwater stuff, that weed's full of food anyway, so
Oh yeah.
all those patches of weed out there, they're stuffed with full of food.
Yeah, full of little fleas, mussels, little zebra mussels. We just pulled loads of those in. So
That's it. Well, it just seems that area just looks like a magnet for fish. You got
Yeah.
deep water, then coming steeply into shallow. Well, I'd love to get a bet on it tonight.
yeah, too right
but
and all.
unfortunately I can't. What a feature that was. 27 foot all the way up to 10. It felt like an age dragging that marker up it, but you can see why fish get caught off it.
Yeah, you can. But what's even more interesting is that I know Stu, and I had a look at it yesterday underwater. Stu, that must have been quite incredible. Can you give us an underwater tour?
Yeah, I'm just about to give you a little look at what that looks like underwater, because believe me, it is pretty impressive.
Well, here we go. We'll take you on a tour of one of the two prominent features in Hardwick. So it's 27 feet deep at the bottom here. Let's make our way up. Two very steep bars, and I think you can see from the gradient of exactly the steepness we're talking about. As usual, there is silt present even on these steep bars. Levels off slightly here are roughly halfway up. Let's keep going. The side of the bar is generally made up of clay and gravel. Solid wall of clay there near the top of the bar. There's definitely more clay towards the top of the bar. As you can see, it's still solid and vertical clay near the top. And here we are at the top of the bar in 10 feet of water. That is the steepest bar I've ever seen in a gravel pit so far. Look at that, that is steep. Let's go and take a look in between the two bars. So here we are in the plateau between the two bars. Nice depth of about 14 feet where we are here. It's actually quite nice and flat here. Canadian on both sides, but quite clear in places. Quite presentable, but I think you'd have to use a marker float to make sure you weren't in the Canadian weed. Quite high numbers of zebra mussels and swan mussels here, so plenty of natural food.
Wow, that has just blown my mind. That feature is one of the most aggressive bars I think I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that, and impossible to fish. That could be the impossible bar.
You couldn't get a bait on that, could you?
No, it's like 2 foot wide.
Well, at the top of it was like a steeple as well in some points, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So you'd never ever get anything to hold on that. And how accurate you are with your spotting, you'd still be off the sides, wouldn't you? And
Yeah.
down into 27 foot of water.
Yeah, you're getting no bait on it. However, that does lead on to the reason why so often you hear about fishing in the gullies.
Yeah, exactly. It's a collection point, isn't it? If there's two bars or a bar, the other side usually you get a nice collection point where debris and everything naturally collects, silt and food as well. So
Yeah.
that's where I sort of fished. I went edge my bets to go towards that area rather than try and present on steeples and everything. And that was savage. The line lay off the top of them bars and that must be horrendous.
You are ducking underneath them if you're a carp,
Yeah.
aren't you? You know, it's amazing to see, and you know, it's what gravel pits are like, and it's what Hardwick is famous for.
And bars are like that, it's like that, and there's loads of mussels and everything. Quite savage, absolutely savage.
But what an eye opener!
It is.
What an eye opener!
Yeah, too right.
However, still 27 foot little bars like that, the gullies, complete opposite to where you've just had your bite from that little margin spot. Oh, you got one there, mate.
Hiya, mate. Yeah, white result, absolutely ripped off. We said that Rob was going to go, didn't we? Eh?
Yeah, that's an awesome little find on that spot. I've seen the fish on it earlier, but
Yeah, it
it's a
is.
good one.
It's probably a double figure fish, but there's been fish coming in and out all the time here. Yeah, so let's get it out and get on the map.
Yeah, let's have a look.
Cheers, mate.
Oh, what a gorgeous looking carp.
Oh mate, awesome, isn't it? Hey?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely
stunning.
black as well.
Yeah, like a new pin.
It is, mate, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, just on that little spot as well, literally just down the shelf. You'd miss it, mate. If you underarm flicked it, you'd miss it. It's literally right down the shelf.
Superb. Lovely when it happens like that. Right, I'm going to take a couple of photos, mate.
All right, dude. Let's see if she'll behave for me. Oh, what a beauty. Nice little new pin. But they are cautious, don't they, down the edge? But
Yeah.
I'd say it's one of them spots where people probably wouldn't think of putting a bait.
Because it was so close, but
It's really close, yeah. Just a tiny, tiny little hook link, literally 2.5 inches long. Absolute beauty. Nice one.
well
Excellent.
done, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Awesome. Well, the kettle's boiling now. Just finally have this cup of tea after the carp interrupted the last one.
Yeah, exactly, mate. It
What,
did, didn't
what
it?
a touch, though, eh?
It was, yeah, and to be fair, and right in the edge as well.
Yeah.
I would like to catch them, and I must confess, I did see a fish down there earlier, so I thought, I've got to sneak a rod in there.
Oh, really? Yeah, very
Yeah.
crafty.
Well, the spot doesn't look like it's been fished before, so tiny little gap in the trees. I thought, I've just got to put a rig there. It just looks so carpy, and I say I saw a fish earlier on as well, and it had only been in an hour, and oof, off it went.
Yeah.
Happy days.
It's good angling. It's good angling, especially on busy, pressured day ticket waters, isn't it? It's an opportunity like that. Like you say, if it doesn't look like it's been fished much, if at all, before, you know, it's a prime area where they're going to sneak in for a little bit of free munch without getting hooked.
Definitely, and you'd miss it as well.
Until Mr. Bryant comes along,
Well,
sets a trap.
it's one of them areas you'd miss it. You'd look over it, like, you know, and say we've seen fish there and coming up and down this margin. It looked too good not to put a bait there, and lo and behold, it's off. Get in.
So what else are you doing tonight? You find some good spots out in open water?
Yeah, I got rods out on spots over bait.
Yeah.
The lake, you know, we don't know what's been out over the weekend here, so we're at the mercy of the fish really. So I think while we've got bait out in the main parts of the lake, it's always good to have a little look around the edges as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, I think key is, you know, it's the end of a weekend now.
Yeah.
And it's a time when I get to fish, and where I like to fish anyway, obviously with family, etc. Spend the weekend at home, and if I'm going to come to a water such as where we are on Hardwick, I do like to come on a Sunday. Have a cup of tea, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Simply because you do find that a lot of people go home sort of midday, sort of mid-afternoonish, obviously to have Sunday lunch.
Yeah,
Spend the Sunday with the family, and I find when I come onto these sort of waters that the fish start reacting as the fish normally would. They're no longer paranoid because the lines are out of the water. So.
Well, that one certainly sneaked in the margin, so hopefully it won't be the last.
Absolutely, and a celebratory cup of tea, sir.
Cheers, mate.
Good angling.
Cheers. So, Cash, I popped down to see you and you're gone.
I had to move. I had to
I
get
know.
out of there.
So what brought all about? How come you've up sticks?
Oh, don't. Well, the benefit of having a diver with us, because nothing had happened during the night. I was fairly certain that the areas that I was fishing was a good, clean area, etc. So I asked Stu to go and have a look for me. First rod, bang on the spot, absolutely fantastic. It was looking good. Stu's come back with a report saying everything was as you would expect it to find. You
Right.
know, the pile of bait was still there from the solid PVA bag. The hook bait was just sat right in the middle of it all. It's absolutely superb. But every bit of bait that I'd baited for the last couple of days was still there.
Oh my God, how much was that?
That was probably a couple of kilo.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you know, so that went out on Friday. You know, I've not been fishing here since Friday, but since the cameras went in and we started to prep the spots, you know, nothing's been there at all. So
Wow.
straight away I'm like, oh man,
Heart sunk.
just a little bit.
Yeah.
He then went across to my other two rods.
Right.
Now, the other two rods, bearing in mind, I'd put the marker out and I'd felt the marker down and it's gone clump on the bottom, like proper, oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Little 2-ounce inline leads,
Yeah.
solid PVA bags on both of them, left and right of the marker. He had to try and find them. There's the good sort of 10, 12 inches of silt, and we just saw the tubing sticking out of the
Oh
sill.
my God.
No, the whole solid PVA bag had just sunk straight into the sill.
Oh jeez.
You know, on both, and I picked them up, and out they came. It's like,
I never
wow.
thought that with a PVA bag, 'cause that's full of air as well. So that's descending very slowly, isn't it, through
Yeah.
the water? Yeah.
and it's a larger area as well, which you think would settle on it. And even with the silt, you'd imagine it might just slightly go into it, but it should still be there or thereabouts. But no, it's straight in and sunk.
And the bait, was it still there as well?
Oh yeah.
So no wonder.
So there's no fish in. I was in no Carp Bay.
Yeah. Well, it is
Unbelievable.
really deep, isn't it? It goes down like 20 odd foot right there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I was in sort of 14s, but
Yeah.
even so, you know, it's just with this wind hacking into there for whatever reason, the fish aren't getting down there.
Yeah.
So I had to get up and go.
don't blame him, mate.
And I'm now on what I will call Penning's Point.
Right.
Because Adam Penning caught a good fish from here a couple of years ago.
Right.
And I'm fishing into the Smith side because again the wind's hacking down. We've seen fish in this
We've
side.
seen a few, haven't we? Yeah.
Yeah, so I've set a couple of little traps in the edge. We've also moved the underwater camera, which
Yeah.
was out on that main bar. Again, that's had bait on it for a few days now. Nothing's been in at all.
No.
Found a great spot out there. Well, Stu found it, to be fair, underwater.
Yeah.
And we've reset the underwater camera on that. I've got a hook bait right next to it. So fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. I'll tell you what, having Stu, like you say, opened my eyes as well. He went out and looked at my spots as well.
Oh, did he now?
And-
But you haven't moved.
I haven't moved, no, because, well, let's just say all the bait's gone. And I've been done up like a kipper, I
Oh,
think.
really?
Yeah, big time.
Oh dear.
First of all, we went out and checked the line lay, because I use lots of plasticine and
Yep.
flying back leads.
Yep.
Well, the back leads off the rod tops were actually suspended a good 4 foot
No.
off the bottom.
Really?
Yeah, when I put them in last night, I did feel them down. They did definitely hit the bottom. I think what's happened over the night, as the line sort of took on water and sunk, and probably now with the undertow, the wind's picked up, it's probably lifted the back leads up. You know, there's tension on the line, the back lead's lifting out the water.
Yeah.
And when you go across to the flying back lead, which is literally 15 yards off the spot, that's suspended again 2-3 foot.
Really?
Off the
That
bottom.
close to the spot as well?
Yeah, yeah, 2-3. You can fish on a bar. So down the gradient,
Yeah.
you can see the line. You can see it clear as a day. Just this little flying back lead just suspended there,
Oh,
going
no.
up and down in the underwater tow. So anyway,
How's your confidence tonight?
yeah, it gets better. So we're fishing out to a bar, then it runs down into a gully and comes up to another bar. But I'm
Yeah.
fishing predominantly on the bar and in the gully.
Yeah.
So he's checked both rods there as well. The one that's gone into the gully looks like I've been done on it, because Stu said when he looked at the rig, it's been definitely moved to the side. There's fish activity around it, so it looks like I've had an aborted take where the fish has probably shook the hook
Did you
out.
get any liners or any indication?
It was very windy last night, so you get the odd beat, but with flying back leads and a back lead, you're not going to register a pickup like that, I don't think, anyway. So that one looked like it's been done. The other rod, which was, I thought, the bank on top of the bar, that one looked presented nicely until you get down to the actual hook bait. You know, the line lays perfect, going
Yeah.
up the last sort of 3-4 foot. You get to the lead, hook links out, you think perfect, and then you get to the bait, and unluckily it's just caught round. It's like a single strand of Canadian.
Oh,
And
no.
The hook's just caught round it.
Oh, that's bad luck.
But you look around the bait, there's no bait to be seen. I've put in, Friday I must have put in about 2 or 3 kilos of mixed bait and hemp, mixed size boilers. I put another little hit of bait out last night, certainly 200, 300 baits out there.
And there's nothing left.
Gone, absolutely gone. It's polished off, clean.
That's why you haven't moved.
That's
Don't blame
why
you.
I'm thinking, right, reposition, rods are out, absolutely spot on. So tonight I'm hoping they come back, and if they do, fingers crossed, we might have another fish.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, again, with my move, fingers crossed, I've moved on to the fish. Tell you one other thing, one quick thing that was interesting, talking to Stu earlier when we were looking for spots in this Smith side to actually put the underwater camera. He commented that out of the two sides, this water temperature is actually warmer than in Hardwick.
It's just shallower side as well, yeah.
Yeah, and he said that's quite a considerable difference, which
Right.
would explain, I would say, why the majority of the fish are here.
Yep.
And where you're fishing almost in that area where the fish would hang about before moving through the channel to
Exactly,
get into here.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it explains a lot.
It is, and I think with myself up there, hopefully maybe picking off 1 or 2 coming through the channel, and yourself now positioned well into the bay.
We've got a good chance.
We've got a few bases covered out.
I'm not going to send Stu back out tomorrow morning and say, look at me rigs.
Too right.
Well, you could forgive me for thinking that there was no fish in that Hardwick side. That wind was howling down there. It's a southwesterly as well. We had the underwater camera out, we had my baits out, some freebies out, Stu's gone and had a look, still all there. But we know that's purely a locational thing because obviously on the Smith side, you'd had a fish.
Yeah.
So we do know that, you know, the fish are here, and we've both caught some cracking fish in the past, and I know you've had fish to just under 30 pounds out of here before.
Yeah, that's right, and I know you've had a few more, and they've been absolute stunners as well. Since the 2007 floods, I know Linear have been very, very proactive in stocking fish, and when we were filming, we were very, very lucky and privileged to see a batch of fish that Chrissy Blunt had come up that was going into Hardwick. Absolute stunners.
I'm here with Linear's fishery officer, Chrissy Blunt. Chris has just turned up and he's got something special that's going to go into Hardwick. What have you got, Chris?
We got 95 carp in the tank from Mark Simmons, and contrary to popular belief, he's actually producing some really, really scaly fish now.
Brilliant.
And we've also got some in there from VS Fishers, which is Simon Scott and Viv Shears.
Nice.
Their average size is about, I don't know, about £8, and there's a couple of upper doubles in there as well.
Oh,
So these are all ready to go, and all super scaly ones.
Really? So
Yeah.
these are going to supplement the already amazing stock that you've got in here. What roughly have we got in here already?
But at the start of the year, we put the stock in at about 350 fish.
Right.
So average size is probably upper doubles, it's probably about 20, 25, 30s, up to Jordan, which is scraper 40 at the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
We've already put 70 in this year. They were all average size about 14, 15 pound, up to 26. We put 10, 20s in.
Wow.
So that's up to, well, you know, about 420, and these will take it up to, you know, somewhere between 500 and 550.
Fantastic. Well, we start getting some out and have a look at them?
Yeah, let's have a butcher's out. Lovely. Cheers. Yeah, just to give you an idea what they're like, they're all really scaly fish like that one. It really doesn't want to stay in my hands. I think that one's actually one of the ones from Simo over at Heather Fisheries. And there's loads of fish like in here, nice zip linears and commons. A load of sort of planer mirrors. We'll get a few out and put them in. Got to show you this one, because it's just too nice. A nice big scaly one.
Wow, that's it, mate. Look how scaly these ones are.
Beautiful.
Number 95 just about to be released.
Last one.
Future of Hardwick is assured.
Certainly is, mate. Hey, those fish are absolutely awesome.
Everyone's a cracker.
They are. There's two good reasons why them fish went in.
Oh yeah?
One, future heavyweights of Hardwick are now secured. And the second one is 95 more chance of you getting a bite on this DVD.
But you've got to get up early.
That's very true. Fair play. I know you went back to your swim and that, and the two guys fishing up the point from us, they had vacated and they had fish, and there were fish showing in that area, wasn't they?
Yeah, there was.
And I was just thinking, do you know what? I'll just go up and have a little look round the corner, see if them guys are on their way or gone. And with that, I've seen two rods poking out and Cash standing there on the point.
Yeah, well, I had to get round there. I didn't bother to take everything else, I just took the rods.
Fair.
Took the rods, they'd seen the fish, cast a couple of baits to them, look what happened.
Look what happened.
Now, they don't have to be big to be special. Look at this little fella. Absolute gorgeous carp, and a fantastic one for the future of this lake. An absolute beautiful little carp. Tomorrow morning, the diver's going to go back out with his cameras and we're going to have a look at spotting from under the water. Should be really interesting. Light's going now, so it's time to slip this little fella back and let him make someone else's day very, very soon. Fantastic.
Tell you what, Cash, that was a freezing night, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a nippy one.
It was, and waking up to that fog in the morning as well just sort of compounded that. I thought we was in sort of the wrong area. Just didn't look right, did it?
No.
I think it was a good move, us moving around to that point where you'd had the fish the previous evening, and lo and behold, not long after we'd been there.
Look at that, Atlantic heat. Fish is loving it. It was right on the bait. Typically, as soon as Stu decided to go around the other side of the lake to get some scenic shots, my rod rattled off, and this little beauty was hanging on the end. Fell to a tactic that I use quite a bit, solid PVA bags. Look at him, he's lovely. What we'll do, we're going to slip him back, and then a little bit later we'll have a look at the exact rig and how I use a solid PVA bag.
So Cash, what have we got in front of you here?
Yeah, this is really interesting. What I like about when you come onto areas like this is you get a hole on the side and you're like, oh, it's got to have a rod on it. That's the Smith side, and to be honest with you, it's quite deceiving, because what I found out there, I had a quick plumb around with the marker, you've got some really steep sided bars. I mean, really, you know, they're like that. It's just like straight down. Yeah. When you're coming up, you can feel it coming right up it. And you've got depths of sort of 21, 22 foot.
Crikey, yeah.
But I inched further and further out with the marker, and sort of 40, 50 yards out, which is almost middle of where we are, I found it started to creep back up, and I did to a point where I found a shelf at 9 foot. Yeah. So I popped the marker up on there, put a bait on it in a bag, put a little bit of spot around it, and I picked up a fish off of it. So, you know, there are areas out there, and it was solid as well. It was, you know, you got a nice thud with the lead. But for me, that was a single rod spot. The main part is obviously what we have in front of us here. And again, it's a pass-through where the fish are moving from Hardwick to Smiths, or Smiths back to Hardwick. So I saw some fish out at about 40 yards range. And again, I had a little plumb around with the marker, and I did find, once you get over this big band of Canadian that you've got here, about 25 yards, and that is floor to ceiling, you know, it's probably 10 foot tall. It's massive, big bank of it. The other side of it though, it drops down, it's getting this thud. You think, oh, that's a nice spot, comes back, and it's just like a bowl area, which is absolutely lovely. But then, just to the right of it, we found a bar. Yeah. And there's a bar. We've got a marker on the bar now, and we've actually put the underwater camera, the permanent camera on there to have a look, because it's a beautiful feature and it runs sort of diagonally away from us. Right. And again, yesterday I put 2 bags either side of the marker, put a little bit of spot around it, and you saw an hour later it rattled off and I had a fish off of it. So,
but it's worth saying, like before that, it's took quite a bit of plumbing, hasn't it, to find these areas.
And I wasn't frightened to get the marker rod out, although I saw fish there. Yeah. Because what we're learning as we're fishing Hardwick is so many areas, the bars and the features are severe. Yeah. You know, it's not a normal lake where you know, just up and down by a few feet. You know, you've got sheer walls with potentially 20 foot of water the other side of it.
And gradients as well.
Massive gradients.
Big gradients,
Yeah. So from a presentation point of view, I took my time with the marker flow, and I found these little areas, and I was assured that, you know, it was presentable. Yeah. And I picked a fish off of it after an hour. So it didn't spook them at all. I know what I'm fishing on in my own mind's eye now. And it's really interesting watching the fish come through, and they're heading for that area all the time. So, you know, it's an area to focus on in the future.
It's a hot spot,
Absolutely. But then I'm over on this left-hand side, you've gone on the right-hand side, so you're sort of commanding the channel and open water of Hardwick.
That's right, yeah. Well, looking at the channel, it just screams fish. I've been up the tree quite a lot today, and there's fish coming through really tight to that overhang and the reeds over there, and where they've actually dug it out with a digger, you can see there's clear spots and there's bits of siltweed and that. I haven't picked up any fish off it except for a tench, but
Sure.
there's been numbers of fish going through there, and I say that bush looks like it's been fished before. I'm sure it does. It does fish regularly. So the drop off goes from probably 4 to 5 foot down to 7 and 8, and then as we move down the opposite split, going in still on the Smith side, the water just gradually, as we found when we fished the other side, gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, down to 18s, 19s then. I, for one, wouldn't be comfortable fishing in that at the moment.
Not at the moment, no.
Exactly. So just moving round on the split, if you go on the other side, we've got another little bush that comes off the right. I know people have caught fish off that before.
Yeah.
I actually had my rod slightly to the left of that because there's a cleaner spot in between the reeds. You can see the reeds on the front. There's a little gap, and just off there, 6 foot, onto gravel as well, and it looks like it's been polished or kept clean.
A little channel that's going through.
It is.
The rest of the main part of this channel looks quite shallow.
It's very shallow, and you'd see fish coming through. We did see a few fish come through the middle, but 9 times out of 10, I think they're using that far bank and cutting tight and cutting underneath that tree.
Yeah,
and
interesting.
It just looks, it screams fish.
Well, it's worth pointing out as well, if you are going to fish on this spit, that the end of the opposite spit is closed. Nobody can fish
No, that's right. Yeah.
So it is safe to obviously put a bait right close to that margin.
Right up to
You haven't got any worries about people coming in and trying to set up there. So
yeah, exactly.
It's worth noting that one. And then I know you've had a couple of rods in open water. And, you're looking out there.
Yeah, I've moved. There's a lot of water there, and I've moved them about, trying to get on fish. We've seen odd fish poking their heads up, and I've tried to explore that with a marker. But basically, after you get over this little shallow bit of the causeway in between the two splits, then it drops off down to sort of 15 foot, and it's a pretty silty gully all the way along here. But there's one particular area where I had a rod for the night, which is all gravel that runs out into that silt gully, so it's all been cleaned off. There's no change in the depth, but it's hard.
Oh, you just found a clearer area?
Just a clearer area, yeah. There's like silt, and then bang, it thuds down, and it all comes back as gravel. I was expecting to find a raised area, exactly the same. So it's obviously an area which has been fed on, and that is, as we look at it from the swim, go to the willow in the corner, and it's just left of willow. If you cast out there, just over the drop off, it goes smack every single time.
About 20 yards?
Yeah, it's 25 yards.
It's not far,
it's
is
very, it? Yeah, it's catapult range.
So basically, at the moment, these few areas, it's all within sort of 30, 40 yards.
Close, it's really close fishing. So if we go out to where I had 2 of my rods, the main sort of feature I suppose in this swim, if you look at the horizon, we've got actually, funny enough, the trees go up in sort of an oval area.
Firs, aren't they, I think?
That's right, right on, just go right at the telegraph pole, and you've got those trees that come up and go back down, and that actually mirrors the feature out there quite nicely.
Right.
The right-hand side is clearer than the left, and what I found is behind the feature, it's like 20, goes down to 20 plus feet, and, and there's silt at the bottom of there. Then you drag up the side of the slope, and it's quite hard to plumb because it's not like gravel where you just get a rat-a-tat-tat all the way up to the top.
Yeah.
It's actually patchy weed, a bit of clay, then you hit the odd bit of stone. So on the marker, you're sort of inching it up, but it's coming up in the water, and I found right on the top 11 foot, and out in there where we're fishing there, there's deep water all around it, and it's just it's got to be a place where the fish feed. Right on top of it, it is clean in patches as well. So I've had 2 baits there, and we've seen fish in and around. I was going to say,
we have seen fish right on top of it.
Right on top, yeah. So I'm amazed it didn't go this morning, but there you go. When Stu went out off those point areas, I'll tell you what, for me, that was mega interesting looking at the silt. Personally, myself, I fish a lot in the silt when I'm back home. I look for those sort of areas. They always contain lots of natural food. And I think it's easier catching them out of a silty area where there's loads of debris flying everywhere than on a billiard table of a gravel patch or whatever. So, Stu saw 2 different types in Hardwick. The first type was when a decaying matter stinks, you bring it in, your lead stinks, it's horrible. The other type was like a light puffy silt, which I tried to target, and I know Stu saw quite a bit of that out there. What was really interesting, I think you agree, is when he went round the other side into the Smith side.
That was it. When Stu then swam through the gap from Hardwick to Smiths, he physically felt a temperature difference in the water anyway. And then when he started to have a look at the silt spots in Smiths, there was certainly more of a sun trap in the spots. And when he put his hand into the silt as well, which was a cleaner silt as well, he said the temperature was phenomenal.
I remember that because I was up the tree at a time, and I was looking, I could see the bubbles coming up where Stu was, and the spots we went, which into where you had fish from as well, I could see him going down, and I could see him through sort of the weed, and there was like a canopy of weed and a little hole, wasn't there? You can just see it protected from undertows and that sun hitting it.
It was just a trap, and as we would presume that trap is not only sort of incubating food for the carp, but it's also a comfortable place for them to be, and who wouldn't want to be in a warmer area? So, you know, again, it's another thing to continue to think about when you do approach your fishing. Think, well, okay, where are these warm spots going to be? Because the water temperature was on the decline for the time of year as well.
Pretty cool, yeah.
So it was dropping, but you know, you're still getting these concentrated sun traps, which attract the fish and also the natural food.
And that was right where the sun was panning around as well, wasn't it? You can just see on a certain side of the bars or the slopes or at the bottom of the gullies where that sun's hitting. That's where that sun was penetrating. And they're mega warm, so I know where I'd be if I was a fish.
Ah, most definitely. It's all good stuff.
Yeah, too right.
One of my favourite rigs for fishing Hardwick is a simple, solid PVA bag rig. It's a dead simple one to set up, but it's almost to take anywhere. And with Hardwick, as we've seen and we've learned with all the different variants on the topography of the lake, this rig, 9 times out of 10, wherever you're going to chuck it, you're going to get good presentation, and it's good enough for a fish to come along, have a mouthful, and the hook's in the mouth. You know, so let's have a look at what we do. I don't bother to use a leader at all, because again, depending on what we're fishing over, the weed, the chard, you know, any of the clay, etc., I just want my line to lay as natural as possible. So what I do to help pin that down, I use a sinker. Now the sinker's usually a foot or so above where the lead is, but it helps pin that line down, especially if we're going to slack line it. Coming to the lead, because again it's quite a weedy water in places, I like to fish an inline drop-off lead. Now this is obviously if the fish gets hooked and goes through a weed bed, etc., it takes very little pressure for that lead to fall off, drop away, and then all we're left with is just the rig. It's dead simple and it's dead safe as well. So from the lead, we're going to come to the swivel and a very short hook link. Now the hook link itself is a braided hook link, because I find this obviously for a presentation in a bag the most versatile and the best to do. Now the braided hook link itself, as you can see, it's extremely short. It's only about 4 inches. I've got a little sinker in the middle to stop it gathering all the air and floating up. I'm using a size 6 curve shanked hook. It's extremely sharp, and a barrel hook bait. Now the hook bait itself, even if I've got a boilie, I'll core it down so it's barrel shaped, because as we've learned as well, when a fish picks up a barrel, it rattles around in the mouth for quite a long period of time before it eventually gets spat out. In that time, 9 times out of 10, you're going to hook the carp. With a ball, it can fall, you know, be sucked in, spat out quite quick. That's my rig, dead simple. I'm going to put it in the bag and just show you a couple of tips on how I use a solid PVA bag. So we move this from here, and we come up into here. Right, just a medium-sized bag, not too big, not too small. So first of all, I'm going to put a small scoop of pellet into the bag to sort of form a base. Again, you don't want too much, just want a small base like this. We pick the lead up and we put the lead in first. So the lead goes in, but the hook bait we stay outside of the bag. So let's get that in there. As you can see, if I turn that round, the lead's nicely in. The hook's just on the outside with the bait on the outside. So now I can fill this bag and the hook bait can remain outside, so we can tuck it all away. So when this lands and dissolves on the lake bed, everything looks absolutely fantastic. Okay, let's kick the lead sort of up. Get that in. Obviously you don't have to just use pellet, you can crush up some boilie, get some boilie in there, you know, get anything that's nice and dry. Different size pellets I've got in here. There we go. Keep padding it down a little bit, so because we don't want any air pockets in there. Okay. Now we're at the point now where we can now drop, as we can, hopefully you'll be able to see that there. So now the hook and the bait sits nice on top. Put a couple more pellets on there. Okay, just like that. Just lick the side of the bag. No need to tie it. Hold the line, and then you just twist the bag. Keeping it all nice and tight. Just hold the bag. Okay. Just wait for that to melt a little bit. So we're there. There's a solid PVA bag. One last thing to do before you cast, pierce some holes in there. This just helps any of the air that may still be trapped inside the bag escape. So on the cast, the bag falls through the water at a good rate, but then it's solid, it's on the spot. It doesn't waft around in the upper layers. There you go, that's my favourite rig for this particular water. Let's pop over to see Mark though and have a look at his.
Well, this is the rig I favoured for this session, the hinge stiffling. Absolutely awesome rig, you can cast it anywhere. It presents itself on most bottoms, and in contrast to Cash, I know he's gone on with pellets and bags. I've decided to gear my approach around boilies. These venues see loads and loads of boilies, and the carp get caught time and time again, and particularly the bigger fish as well. So just looking at the rig, we've got a nice sharp size 6 jolly hook, very buoyant pop up. I'm actually using a white one, this bait, a nice white fluoro over food bait. Normal components, a nice curve on the bristle filament, and then moving down, giving it a nice bit of flexibility. We've got a ring swivel and actually crimp the booms on there, so again it just gives it a degree of flexibility, and again helps it lay out flat, but also if a fish comes from the opposite way, it just turn the hook round and hook into the fish's bottom lip. Moving up to the lead, got a nice 3 to 4 ounce lead. You can see this one's actually covered in a bit of clay. Absolutely perfect. We turned up here, there was fish showing out there. I didn't really want to put a marker out, so I cast a showing fish, got a nice fud down on the lead. In the morning, wound it in, bit of clay on it, perfect. And from what we've seen, the fish, some of them got little streaks of clay on them, so they're definitely feeding in the clay, and it's an ideal spot on Hardwick to present baits. This I've just attached on a helicopter style, and again this is just to give it that degree of flexibility. If the lead does plunge into a little bit of sediment, then the hook link can fly up, and I can adjust this bead accordingly if I'm fishing over a little bit bottom debris. I've got a little fluorocarbon leader, nice and short, and at the top there you see a nice lump of plasticine there, which just helps bed everything down. I've actually got another lump of plasticine, another 18 inches up the line there. Again, I'm paranoid about getting these lines down with these fish, so that helps certainly. What I'm trying to mirror out there is a nice spread of boilies, and we actually had Stu dive out and he had a little look at groups of boilies falling through the water. I catapulted out maybe sort of 3s and 4s at a time, nice tight group over his head, and we found that in 14 foot of water they all spin at different rates, and they all do slowly descend, but they do spread out as well. So I've put some on the floor here, and this is exactly what I'm trying to achieve out in the lake. So we've got a nice spread of boilies here, hook bait goes in amongst it, presents itself, and then we've got, say, good few inches between the baits, so the fish are coming in, they're picking, another nice visual bait, bang, pick, hooked, job done. That's it, that's my rig, that's my favourite one for Hardwick. So Cash, PVA bags. I know you place a great emphasis on it and you use them on a lot of different venues.
Love them.
Now I think there's 2 reasons you use PVA bags.
Really?
First one, I think they're a great way for you to present bait in any situation. But the second reason, I think your rigs are rubbish and they probably tangle if you didn't use them.
Hang on. 2 fish? How many have you caught?
Very true, very true. It's
Yeah.
one, but it's early days yet. It's
Yeah.
early days. Well, looking at the footage on the underwater with Stu going out to see these PVA bags, we actually noticed they didn't do anything radical, they melted. But what was really interesting is what happened next. It absolutely blew me and Cash away. Let's take a look.
Okay, the PVA bag is down. A few air bubbles coming out and it's starting to melt as expected. Yeah, well on the way to melting now. Yeah, it's melted down and actually the hook is sat quite nicely. The rig looks quite good. The only bit that's not melted is the bit around the tubing, which is making like a ball. Okay, I'm going to pick up the rig now. Just going to put the hook point on the fleshy part of my finger. And let's see how far we can move the lead. This is a 2 ounce lead. I've no pain at all, I can move this to carry on. No pain at all. I'm just going to lift up the lead, and these are sharp hooks, and I can lift this lead easily off the bottom, no problem. with a 3-ounce lead. Just pick up the bait now and again put the hook point on my finger. No pain at all, I can barely feel the hook. That's over a foot. Mildly uncomfortable now. But I can still pick this lead up. Okay, let's find this 4-ounce rig. There she is. Just try and put that on my finger. Oh, that's much more difficult. No, ouch. I'll try again for a second time and see. No way, no way can you move that. That's the one, boys.
Wow, wow.
That's mind-blowing, isn't it? Look.
I wasn't expecting that, and I think the way that Stu's done that underwater by actually physically using his own finger, we can relate to it now, whereas obviously if we're filming a carp picking up, we can't really relate to that, but we have seen on previous underwater videos where a carp does pick up the rig completely. As it rightens up, it shakes its head quite violently and it all falls back.
Yeah.
Now that begs a question like what we've just seen, is that down to the size of the weight? Because on that 4-ounce lead, he couldn't move it.
No, definitely not. And we're using some mega sharp hooks. Those little captors and that, they're in, aren't they?
You're not getting sharper than them.
No, that's it. So I think that's massively interesting from my point of view. I've always tried to use as heavy lead as I get away in the margins, but to see that on his finger and him swinging a 2-ounce lead about.
And a 3.
And a 3-ounce lead, like that, it's just amazing.
It really, really is. And it would also go to show how we're probably being done a hell of a lot more than what we think we're being done. The fish are just picking it up and getting rid of it.
Shaking it out.
We haven't got a clue.
Yeah, not even registering one beep or something like that on that. And yeah, totally. Well, it opens the door, doesn't it, to do more stuff. I'd love to test some other lead setups and everything, but now is not the time or the place.
Absolutely not. But we do have to bear in mind, obviously, that is just in one scenario. Using it on a slack line and a PVA bag. We need to look at different size leads in the future, different rigs, running rigs on a lead clip, etc., just to get a variable. But certainly, in that scenario,
on a slack line, yeah,
I'm using a 4-ounce lead in the future.
Too right. Well, and I am using 4-ounce leads.
2 fish.
Oh, that's very true.
2 fish.
Very true. I'm working on that.
You work away. Get a PVA bag on it.
I might have to tonight.
Anyway, let's go and have a look at another popular feeding method on Hardwick. Spodding. Massively popular but massively successful on all of the linear waters, and Hardwick is no exception to that rule. It's already a proven method on there and it works time and time again. The fish just love it. What I'm going to do for you now is I'm just going to put a mix together and I'll go through the ingredients. I keep mine quite simple, but it's got loads of attraction, loads of spice in it, and the carp absolutely love it. So first of all, the main bulk and base of what I use in a spod mix is hemp. Now I'm using chili hemp because it gives that extra spice and attraction. It's something a little bit different. Coupled with that, halibut pellet. Again, loads of oil, loads of attraction, and these carp do love pellet. They see a lot of pellet, but they just love it, so they can't get enough. Thirdly, some kingfish, real spicy, lovely fishy bait, and it's got so much attraction in it in itself. I'll show you what I'll do with that before I put it in the mix. Add a few tigers in there, nice and convenient in the tin, they're already done, and it's almost bite-sized, perfect for a spod mix. You don't need any more than that. And finally, to top it all off, that mega attraction and slick, I use fish oil. Hot fish oil, it's a proven winner. So, very simple process we go through. I'm just going to throw a load of it in, mix it all up, and away we go. Look at all that chili, look. Oh, loads in there. A little chili, got the halibut pellet. Throw some growlers in there. Love a bit of growler. Now, on the kingfish, I'm not going to use these whole. Basically, I'm going to put them into a crusher and I'm going to crush them up a little bit because again, it releases the attraction and it's bits for the carp to feed on. And you know, they really get their heads down onto it. They get a taste for it, then they've got a taste for your hook bait as well then, and they'll go searching out your hook bait. So just put some of that in there. We don't need, obviously, to mulch it right down to just powder. We just have clumps, different odd shapes there, so it keeps the fish feeding and searching and looking. Loads and loads of attraction already in it. And the carp do seriously home in on this. Okay, so there we go. Get that out of the way. And finally, let's add a bit of oil. And there it goes. Okay, let's give it a good mix. So everything's all together. Right. Just look at that. That's my Hardwick spod mix. What carp can resist this? What's always fascinated me about spodding is how your mix looks as it drops through the water and what kind of spread of bait you get on the lake bed. Now the benefit of obviously filming this DVD is that we can actually go out there and have a look now with our diver with the underwater cameras. So without any more hesitation, let's go and have a look how it falls through the water and what kind of spread we get.
First up is how it empties. We'll use just a straightforward cast.
Yeah, a good chunk of that is emptied on the descent. It empties in 2 goes and leaves almost a line of bait.
On this cast, I'm not clipped. I'm allowing the spod to land as near to the marker as I can get it. As you can see, when the spod hits the water, it deposits some bait. And then as I clamp down on the reel, it springs back and it deposits more bait. Now this isn't necessarily a big problem because you are getting a spreader bait. However, you might want to just concentrate on a spot. This isn't necessarily the method to use for that. Compare this to a clipped up feathered cast where the bait is deposited in a much more accurate and concentrated area.
Oh, that's much smaller cast, that's falling in a tighter column. It's amazing that that spot actually doesn't look as though it's spread very far. Certainly doesn't look much for one spot by the time it's reached the bottom here in 11, 12 feet of water. Seems to have spread out around 6 feet, I guess.
Of course, in shallow water, it's a lot tighter, as you'd expect.
Yeah, there's no surprise there, that's hardly spread out at all, it's exactly as I thought. Probably about 10-12 inches.
So Cash, the spodding I know is something that we found particularly interesting. We do use that quite a lot on our own fishing,
Yeah.
especially the difference between deep water and shallow water.
Yeah, it's quite incredible. When you're looking at the shallow water, single spod, as it empties, it looks a huge amount of food. But when we got into the deeper water, which was 12 foot, and a single spod that spread out, as Stu said, over sort of a 6 foot area, it looked nothing at all.
It did, and when we had Stu on the bottom at the base level, we could see all the bait hung up in bits of weed and everything, and we got this idea that it's all precise and we're fishing on rock hard bottoms and that. There's always a bit of debris and all sorts down there, and seeing that at all levels, fascinating.
It really was, and you can see that the carp will just completely clear that area. Well, talking about bait, bait is a subject that's obviously very close to your heart. Bonjour, le baron.
Cash?
Right, bait.
Yes.
Now, you obviously own your own bait company, so without plugging it too much, tell me what you would recommend your general angler arms himself with when he comes to Hardwick for a weekend. What should he bring?
Well, boilies on here. There's so many boilies that must go into this venue week after week, kilos and kilos and kilos of it. I produce 3 baits, 3 different types of boilies: Monster Red, the Atlantic Heat and the Kingfish, all high spec baits, good quality baits. And I'd say anyone coming onto this type of venue, the higher quality of the boilie, I think, will overfish the inferior ones. So yeah, use the higher quality bait as you can, and it certainly will pick out sort of the better fish.
Sure. Looking at the baits
Yep.
and what comes through, is there anything that you would do slightly different? Because again, it's a fantastic quality bait range that you've got. You know, instant attraction, food value. However, these fish do see so much.
Yeah, sure.
So do you pepper them at all? Do you know, put something a little bit extra in?
Definitely. With the depths on both sides, we found, 20 foot
Yeah.
on the Smith side and even deeper over on the Hardwick. So this fish are spending a hell of a lot of time in the upper layers or mid-water. And one little edge that I found is by putting on, I've got our hot fish oil.
Yeah.
Lots, oil, I think, on here is a massive key in pulling fish down from the upper layers down to your hook baits. And you can simply just add that onto boilers, let it soak in over a few hours, and that'll be peppering, it'll be sending up loads of little signals off your bait all the time. So any fish coming through, lock onto that signal down, even if it's in depths of say 15 plus foot.
Yeah.
Couple that with little sticks as well.
Yeah.
Great success on them. Cast them absolutely anywhere, and those actually been loaded up the night before. So make the sticks the night before. You can keep them in the pot, but get as much oil into them as you can, and again, that sends up a massive food signal for the fish.
And like you say, it's just going to draw them through the column, even if they just come and have a look, think, well, what is this?
Yeah.
Once they're there, they know the food is there.
Definitely,
they might not pick it up immediately, but at some stage you're going to revisit
They
it.
clock it. They come past, they know it's there, and I think you can't put enough, that oil, especially this time of year. We're edging into sort of the autumn now, and the fish are on the lookout for food, so they know all about these signals. And I say, as much as that you can get onto your baits, even into your spod mixes, pellets, whatever.
It's going to help.
Exactly, yeah.
One thing that I watched earlier when Stu, our diver, went out, put out a fair bit of bait. We know what these features are like in here.
Yeah.
Now I'm fishing on a shelf at 9-10 foot. The other side of the shelf was a sheer wall, and it was like this.
Right.
Stu's filmed the bait, it's just trickling down the wall.
Oh,
He's going
God.
down from my 10-foot spot down to 25 foot in a load of silt. Some of them were hanging up on the edge, but they were just rolling away. I mean, what's that all about?
There's no way around that, even if you're putting barrels, them steep slopes, and we've seen it on the other side as well in the underwater footage, they are literally, as you say, like cliffs, aren't they?
Yeah.
And it's just straight down. So any bait you put on that, if you're not 100% with your marker in and getting on the tops of these bars and on areas that are at least flat, and not the, that takes into consideration some of the gradients as well we've seen. It can start to roll and disappear. So I'd say, you've got to take your time on the marker, and even if you have to take another half an hour or however many it casts, you've got to position that bait as well as you can on tops of these features. Otherwise, your bait's disappearing into the abyss.
Yeah, and you've got to make sure you've got them bait accurately as well. So everything, take your time, make sure everything's pinpoint perfect, and you are in with a chance then.
Definitely,
but like you say, if you're a little bit carefree with it, your freebies could be 26 foot away from where your hook bait
It is, yeah.
unbeknown to yourself.
Too right.
Sorry we had to cut that interview short there, mate, but as you saw, I had a twitchy take, and that rod had been out ages, and these fish, they can be twitchy at times, and that's where you've kind of got to get your indication nailed. But I just saw the rod tip just knock a few times, and I just thought, well, I've got to hit that, and hence why it was all a bit Heath Robinson, where Stu had to run off and grab another camera.
This rod's been out all day. I had a little lead around earlier because I heard some fish up here, and I found that on the bottom out there it's some dying weed, so some long strands of very dark black weed. So what I've opted for on this one is a really long hook link with a balanced bait on it, and it's on a white pop-up that sinks real slow. I used a 2-bait streamer which consisted of 2 pop-ups, so again it sank really slow, so everything could rest just right on top of the weed, and it's been out probably about 5 or 6 hours. It's another tactic to consider when you're fishing a lake like Hardwick. We're actually in Smith's side of Hardwick at the moment. We sort of have to really concentrate on what we're doing. No need to rush anything. Hey! That's it, I've just unhooked it in the net. So everything that's going to be nice and simple for us to get it up on the bank, have a look at her. We're going to weigh her. She's an absolutely stunning looking carp. I'm really pleased. Do you want to grab that and I'll just double check? Yeah, we're all okay there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. 16, 15. Ooh, just under. It's knocking on 17, mate. Just under 17.
Just under 70. That's cool. This is what you come to Hardwick for. Pretty, gorgeous carp. Absolute peach. Slip her back and thank her. Picking up my hook bait. Boilie thief.
You can't count that fish though, that had only been put in the day before.
Number 3?
Number 3, yes.
Hey, that was observation, looking at that rod tip, saw the line pick up a couple of taps, but no indication on the alarm.
Yeah, no beeps. Yeah.
Not at all, so unless we've been watching, could have missed that. But we kind of learned that from what happened yesterday.
That's
Obviously, yesterday, a similar occurrence. However, I did get a single bleep, which obviously made me look at the rod tips, and I saw the line pick up slightly.
Which could have been a liner or anything, couldn't it?
It could have, it could have. And, you know, we waited a few minutes or 10 minutes or so just to wait to see if it was going to materialise into something, and it didn't. So we thought, let's send Stu out to have a look, see what's occurred.
The line is really tight, mate. I think you've had a take. Yeah, I can see it's going into the weed and the tail rubber is off. Yes, mate, it's a tench. It's still attached. Tell you what, I'm going to unhook it underwater to save the embarrassment of saying you've caught a tench.
You can't count that one.
Oh, all right.
It's a tench.
Yeah, all right. Still a bite.
That's very true. More than what I had that day.
Absolutely. But you could see that, what are we missing? You know, what is going on down there that the fish are doing to us, and we have absolutely no idea, which again poses another question and another test for Stu. So let's send Stu back out and let's see how far in a clear water condition can he actually move our leads and rigs before we get an indication of the alarm.
So no weed. How far are you fishing out?
30 yards again.
30 yards. Okay, let's do it.
Okay, I can see the rig here, the tubing and the lead. There is the bait, and this bait scattered over maybe a 3 or 4 feet area here. I'm just going to see if I can pick up the rig and move it. Okay, here we go. 3 inches, 6. That's 1 foot. 2 feet.
Well, Cash, 2 foot before we got an indication. That's got to worry, haven't you?
I'm a little bit concerned. Yeah, what are we missing?
Exactly. We're fishing, and you know, I'm looking for indication what's going on in the swim. And I fish a slack line quite a lot where I can, and I know that the leads had to move 2 foot at least before I'm getting any indication. And oh man, I'm scratching my head. That's raised so many questions for me. And if I can take that away from this DVD, then and address that, but I don't know how we can. Maybe that's for a future one.
I think that is for a future DVD. We'll take some of these questions, and hopefully we'll get the opportunity to answer them again in the future.
That's it. Well, we'd like to take this opportunity to thank Linear Fisheries, in particular Roy Parsons and Chrissy Blunt, for letting us spend a few days up here. We'd love to spend another week. We'd have Stu in there all the time, but we've got to wrap it up, unfortunately. So from me and Cash, it's goodbye, but we hope to see you in the future sometime.